Today on Isolation Nation, I am back. This was me yesterday. I felt like no confidence. I felt like no belief in myself. I felt like I had no creativity. I kind of just felt really crappy. And that's what depression does to you. You can't fake that look of pain on your face and in your eyes. I look really sad. Case, tell me if I'm doing this well.
You could go a bit further.
Okay, more depressed?
That's better.
Quivering lip?
That's too far.
Okay, all right, I got it. Yeah, I'm not sure that was supposed to be in there. Let's try that again. I can't do the show talking about mental illness because of my mental illness. Much better. Today, former Bruins Rookie of the Year, Andrew Raycroft.
Canadians with it again. Down for Bullis. Great save, Raycroft!
He got traded to Toronto and took a ton of heat. I was one of the few guys in the media who really stuck with him. Oh, man, I remember booing the shit out of that guy. So much fun. What a stiff. Well, this is a little bit awkward. We got to roll something that'll take his mind off it. Roll something positive.
Andrew will help win a lot of games this year, just like he's already winning a lot of hearts in our Hockey Hunk series.
Oh, Andrew Raycroft, Hockey Hunk. Oh, man, that was so fun. And look at you. What a good sport. You heard me joking around. Andrew Raycroft, good to see you. How you doing?
I'm doing really well, considering. We got a nice day. The kids are happy. And yeah, things are going well. We're at the end of coronavirus down here. So we're getting out of the house and starting to feel somewhat normal again.
Okay, well, let's establish two things that you kind of left open-ended. Number one, you said that you have your kids. How old are your kids? And number two, you said down here. I'll just tell folks you live in the Boston area. So how about your kids?
Live in the Boston area. I have 3 kids. Boy, that's going to be 11 this month, and boy-girl twins that are 7. So lots of chaos, lots of action in our house right now.
Wow.
Yes.
What was twins like? I mean, especially, if you have twins first, God forbid I would get in your head and tell you, how many kids you should have. But if you have twins first, you can say, okay, we have 2 kids, but then you have one and you say, let's have another one. And then all of a sudden you got 3 of them. Oh my gosh. And you got a toddler and you got 2 kids that you bring home from the hospital. I mean, oh my God, man, that must've been crazy.
It was bananas, and a long way from that hockey hunk video. There's no question about that. That's a long ways away. But no, we went from man-on-man coverage to zone real quick in our house. So it was quite something.
Yeah, that's just so funny and great that you found you settled in Boston. You are from. And I'm not telling you this. I assume you know where you're from. You're from the Belleville area. Belleville, your parents are still there. I was telling the story when you and I were on the radio together that I met your dad once at an event, and I was the guy who was brought in to speak. And it was like nobody knew I was there because your dad, it was like, oh my God, that's Andrew Raycroft's father. Oh my God, is that him? Oh, I'm so nervous. Woo! He was such a celebrity. It was so cute because he was so proud of you. And I mean, I would assume that now that you have kids, you can understand the pride that your dad would have felt in you because you would feel that in your kids.
I certainly recognize that a lot more than I did when I was that hockey hunk at 26. So yeah, it was, I'm sure he was a little embarrassed by it still. But yeah, it's cool being from Belleville. It's cool growing up, born and raised there, and for my parents who were born and raised as well. To come out of there is, I know makes them proud most of the time.
So let's take this chronologically. You were drafted by the Boston Bruins. You were Rookie of the Year for the Boston Bruins. At that point in your life, had you experienced any challenges with mental illness?
No, not looking back and thinking about it. Not really. I stayed naive for a long time, and I think I don't know if that correlates, but I think the longer I stayed naive and didn't really get discouraged, I just always thought I would find a path, and I never recognized how hard it was to get to this point, or how difficult it was, or how many other guys were trying to get to the same spot. I just had belief, and and just a serious naivety to, becoming an NHL player. I just thought I would hit all the steps and get there if I keep working. So no, there was, there's ups and downs and you're frustrated at certain times, but never at a point where it really affected me when I woke up in the mornings.
It's naivete, not naivety. Okay.
I knew I messed it up.
I could see the look on your face.
I've learned in TV, you just keep going. You don't try and look.
Oh my gosh. Well, let's tell people that you work on Bruins games, right? How long have you done that for? Because I watched in preparation for this and finding those clips that I hoped would embarrass you. I saw a lot of your stuff, analyzing games between periods, pregame. I saw you did an interview with Joe Thornton. That was really cool because he was Rookie of the Year with the Boston Bruins. You were Rookie of the Year with the Boston Bruins. I mean, that kind of chemistry is amazing. How long have you done it for?
It's been, last year is my first full season. The 2 prior seasons I was taking, 10 to 12 games, a few late ones, getting my feet wet, getting ramped up a little bit, and doing college as well. But this past year I was much busier and got in the mix a lot more and basically became somewhat of a regular. So to do, more interviews and getting my face and doing that has been a lot of fun. And I look forward to doing more and more of it. It's been a good way to be in the game for me.
Oh, for sure. It's a great way to be able to use like everything that you learn, because I mean, not to suggest that everyone who plays hockey has to go into hockey, but it's like you have all of this knowledge and this experience and this understanding of the game. It's great to be able to put it to good use. And I have to say, I mean, it'd be weird if I would say anything else, but I mean this as opposed to the rest of the shit that I say. You're really good at it. You're really natural at it. And, I think that you found a second calling in your life, which is really, really difficult for a lot of guys who played hockey because they only define themselves as being what they used to be as opposed to what they are.
I appreciate the kind words. I'm working at it. And I know you wouldn't say it if I actually suck. So I do appreciate that.
Oh, I might say it, but I wouldn't tell you. I wouldn't preface it by saying it like that.
That's right.
So, let's go back on your journey. And so you're in Boston and you win the Calder. Things are, going obviously as well as they can, as a Rookie of the Year, you obviously can't do better than that. And then I guess things weren't as easy and you get dealt to the Toronto Maple Leafs. What was your first thought at that time, and what was your mental health at that point when you're going from Boston to Toronto?
Sure. My first thought, I was extremely excited, extremely pumped, being able to basically go home, as close to home as I can go, and to go back to that, where I was mentally. It was a fresh start for me. Having the lockout come after my rookie season, basically getting derailed and not really recognizing it at the time, but I was way behind and didn't prepare well enough for that season. And Joe Thornton, we just talked about, got traded. The team was really poor. It was a very tough season, and I struggled. I got injured. I wasn't able to get my game, and that was kind of the first time where I felt a lot of expectation. I felt a lot of pressure, and I felt that I wasn't able to rise to that for the first time, where I was at a point where I just couldn't get to what was expected of me. And I think that comes from being an underdog all the way up. No one ever expected anything from me until that season. And it was kind of the first time where I was a big dog, and it was difficult for me to kind of deal with that on a day-to-day basis. So that trade was good for me to get out of Boston. I was excited about that. And I was really excited, obviously, to be a Toronto Maple Leaf, because I knew exactly what that meant.
Right. And what was the first time that you can remember? And I think it's really good that you can talk about this, about what Toronto did to you. And I think one of the things that's so inspirational about it, unless I'm wrong, and I don't think I am, is that you've been able to put it in the past, right? That you are no longer living and dying by your hockey career on the ice, that you've moved on. Am I correct on that?
You are correct. Yes. I recognize, and I think it's taken me a few years. You talked about the transition at the end of the game, and I thought, I went to Europe. I knew I was done. There was no shock, and I thought I was well prepared for it, or as well as anyone could be. and you realize that you're not, no matter how much you think you are, and you wish you had done more while you were playing and get set, all those things. And again, we had the twins, and so it took me 3 or 4 years out of the game completely. And I think it's helped with my kids. I think it's also helped. I'm doing some coaching here and just kind of easing my way and just going to UConn and being in college. And I've been able to recognize how hard it is to play in the NHL. And I think at times when you're in the NHL, and I just talked about expectations, you lose complete track of the real world and how hard it really is. And when you're a peewee, I'm comparing myself. I go from comparing myself to someone in the AHL or trying to make it to now I'm comparing myself to Martin Brodeur or Roberto Luongo, and that changes so quickly, and that's hard to deal with at times if you're not really there. And I think all the way through, I felt, I guess, the day I left hockey, I felt like a bit of a failure. And it takes a couple years of looking back and recognizing that playing almost 300 games in the NHL and doing what I did is actually a positive thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's sad. I was, I shouldn't say, I was buddies with Wade Belak. And we used to joke around because Wade, by NHL standards, was not a skilled guy particularly, right? And, he was a fighter and he knew that. And, we used to joke around and he would say, oh, yeah, well, I may be the worst player in the NHL, but that makes me number 750 in the world. And that's pretty damn good, right? It's like you forget because you live in this world where the bar is so high. And I'm sure it's hard to just step back and go, this is actually really cool. I may not be the best goalie in the NHL, but I'm one of the top goaltenders in the world because I'm in the NHL. So you go to Toronto, and when is the first time that you thought to yourself, okay, this is not necessarily really good for me?
It's fun. I told us the one story that I look back on, and for whatever reason I remember it, and it wasn't necessarily like, oh boy, I'm not going to be able to handle this or anything like that. But there was a game. We were reading newspapers back then. There was still no iPhones. This is 2006, so right. I remember going to breakfast in the morning, and I hadn't read a paper in forever. We beat the Rangers the night before, 8-2, at Hockey Night in Canada. Hammered the Rangers. Chase Lundqvist from the net. Everything's perfect. 8-2. They score like a weak goal at the end of the game. It didn't matter. It was 8-1. I give up 2 goals on 20 shots. And I'm like, I can actually read the paper. I know today there is nothing going to be critical about my name or about me in this paper. I can read everything that's going on in the world of the news, the sports. I can read it all. And I read the article about our win. And in the first article, or the first paragraph, it's, Raycroft had an okay game in net, gave up a poor goal late in the third period, really wasn't that good, but didn't have to be. And I remember thinking like, geez, I can't even read the paper without having a negative connotation in an 8-2 win when the team's rolling. So I think I remember that. For whatever reason, I remember that. I'm sure there was other things that happened, but I recognized then that I wasn't able to really engage in any of that without having that negativity thrown back at me.
So at what point do you think that your struggle in your head from the media, and I imagine fans usually follow the media, so you're not in an environment which is being very gentle to you. At what point do you think, looking back, that, wow, I crossed over from just being in a tough situation and frustrated to maybe having something that you could diagnose as a mental illness?
It was certainly after the first season when we missed the playoffs. I put a lot into that year. I played a lot of games, and to miss out by 1 point at the end and not, I guess, ended up leading, having the most wins in franchise history with Cujo, and basically getting no respect for that and no compliment. No, it was just negative, just pounding. And it was my fault we didn't make the playoffs. And, it just, that I allowed that to snowball on me throughout the whole summer. And then they brought in another goal, they bring in Vesa, and it just kept snowballing. And at that point, I look back and think that it wasn't a very fun summer for me. It was hard and I was defensive. So that made it worse. because I didn't really want to engage it. I didn't want to deal with it. I just wanted to put it aside, and I tried to come in really happy the next season. And it wasn't, it was fake most of the time. And I was struggling, and I was mad that I wasn't the goalie starting every game. And I was trying to be that good teammate, but it was, so I look back, and it was right at the end of that season, and not making that playoff, and feeling like I'd put everything I did, and not even just getting a little bit of love for that.
So help us understand as you look back, what you think it was, because I mean, professional athletes go through that a lot, right? People have, disappointment. I mean, everybody has disappointment in their lives, but when you're a professional athlete, there's a pretty good chance that your season's going to end with disappointment because, obviously only one team wins the championship. So at what point do you think that this was more than just frustration, that this was something that other people will be able to relate to? Because most people who we would be talking to, can't say, oh, I remember when I played goal in the NHL. So when did it become something that many of us can relate to?
It starts when it's hard to get up and train. And again, I wasn't like, a guy who loved being in the gym, but I recognized the discipline needed every year up until that point. And come June, I got married that summer, and I came back from I still wasn't excited for that next season to start. And I was lethargic a lot, and, not necessarily eating proper, like just not getting ready the way I had before. And, I would take 2 months off. I wouldn't have a beer for 2 months before the season. And I would, it's just Saturday night. I'm in the city. My buddies are here. I'll have a couple beers. And that discipline, I let that get away. And I think it was just because I wasn't excited about it. I just didn't feel like getting up in the morning and going to the rink and dealing with hockey. I just wanted to be, I really regressed and became much more insular than I had been prior to that.
And looking back at that was obviously a different time. And I mean, some organizations, some businesses still live in the past, right? Where mental health, mental issues are still taboo, and people don't talk about them, and they suffer in silence. But then there are, like, for instance, the Maple Leafs, the organization I would know the best. They have a confidential psychiatrist that you can reach out to. If you're a player on that team and you go, wow, I need to talk to someone, you have access to this person who is by definition not allowed to let Kyle Dubas, the general manager, know, or Brendan Shanahan, the president, or the coach of the team, Sheldon Keefe. And that's amazing. Would you, if you could have had that, do you think you would have gotten over this sooner?
I don't know if it wasn't really the parameters around the team, because I had, there's people around and believe me, the Leafs are one of the top 2-3 organizations in the league. And they have been since I was there. I never felt like it was going to go to the very top and go to the glassed offices or the coach's office. I just didn't want the guys to know. I didn't want them, I knew what they saw, what people were saying of me. I didn't want to be that guy going in, and I didn't want to be seen talking to those guys. And there was that stigma around it where I needed to be, tougher and fight through it and not look that way. And, I believed in that at the time. I really did, but I wish I had if I could talk to myself now, hey, it's not a big deal. You need to go and do this. And when I talk to young guys, this is number one. You need to be able to go and talk to people when things aren't feeling great, because there's so many tools available that it does make a massive difference, and it can make a massive difference. And all you need is one word or one symbol or one thing in your head to snap you out of it that can really help in certain times. So it wasn't necessarily I was worried about it going to the coaches. I wasn't, I never felt that. It was more what I looked to the players and what would the media say if this guy who's, not playing well and being sensitive is even, is that going to make it that much worse?
Yeah. I mean, I'm just putting myself in your position, and I'm thinking that would be really hard. You see, when I came out, which was 2009, when I came out, it was after interviewing Stéphane Richer. Did you ever? You wouldn't have played against Stefan Richer, would you have?
No, I missed him, but I've actually, like, alumni trips and stuff, I've gotten to know him, but no, I never played against.
So Stefan Richer changed my life, and I changed Stefan Richer's life. Neither one of us did it on purpose, but I asked him before doing Off the Record. I said, I've never met you before, but I know you suffered from depression in the 1990s. Would it be okay if I asked you how you're doing now? And this was 2009. And he said in his French accent, I don't think his mouth was like this, but it was like, he said, it's very painful. So I said, I don't want to talk about it then. I don't want to cause you pain, but if you'll talk about it, I'll talk about it. And he said to me, like, what do you mean? And I said, well, for the last 10 years, I have, really battled this illness called depression. And at times, basically I was alive, but I wasn't living. I was just going through the motions. As you made reference to yourself, I didn't show it to people. My family knew and my friends knew and people I work with, but I never talked about it on TV. So we went on the air. I'm now speeding up because this story has been told a lot of times by me on this very same social media show. And we went on the air and we talked about it for 90 seconds. And then the next day I started to get emails from people saying, wow, it made such a difference to hear two guys talking about depression without sounding ashamed or embarrassed and without sounding weak. And it empowered people to reach out to me to say that. So I understand. See, the whole purpose of bringing you on the show is just so I could tell that story again, right? It's just, I'm just using you, Raycroft, to tell that story.
I'm okay with that.
But I want to know for you, when was the first time that you let people know that you had gone through this really tough time? And when do you think, let's take this in order, when do you think you came out of it?
Oh, when do I fully came out of it? Probably when I got to Vancouver in 09, 010, when I was able to go, and it wasn't really a matter of something. It was just, I loved it there, and I found happiness just going to the rink. The guys were great. I enjoyed working every day. I had, Ian Clark was a goalie coach there who, he just made it. He made me realize that work was fun, and you just did it in a certain way. So, but I never really, I never talked about it. I'm talking about it here, I think, for more, just because, I'm comfortable in my skin and being able to look back and explain it, but I still don't really bring it up too often, just because it's, I don't necessarily always consider it inspirational, but I do gain it from when, hearing you talk about when you hear enough other stories you recognize, and maybe I didn't even recognize it at the time. I think that's a thing too, where I didn't really recognize that I was so sad until I hear someone else talking about it. And then I look back at where I was and recognize that I was not anywhere near the same person in 03, 04 than I was in 06, 07 or 07, 08. It's not even close to the same person. And in retrospect, I should have been so much happier, but I wasn't.
Let's brighten it up a little bit, even though it's pretty bright. It's not like, It wouldn't be bright if you and I were both in a really bad place right now. It would be hugely important for people, but it would be a totally different tone. So, Phil, let's get ready for Sean Cullen with his theme song for Isolation Nation for you, Andrew Raycroft. Roll it, Phil.
It's a nation in isolation. It's a nation in isolation. It's a difficult situation. It's a nation in isolation. Think of it as a long staycation. Rookie of the year in Boston town. Andrew Raycroft, they sent him round. He had some good times.
Canadians with it again. Down for Bullis. Great save, Raycroft!
Sometimes we're bad. The media in Toronto made him really sad, yeah. But he was really good looking. All the ladies said he had it cooking. Everywhere he went, they'd fall around. And you'd always hear this sound. Oh, is that Raycroft?
And I had a little one-on-one time with this gorgeous goalie.
It's a nation in isolation. It's a difficult situation. It's a nation in isolation. Now it's time for some personal emancipation. Yeah. Oh, Andrew Raycroft, he's so beautiful.
Wow. I was not expecting any of that. That is awesome.
He's just, there's something about Sean, and Sean is actually not only has done a song for us every day, sometimes two songs. His Johnny Cash song for George Larocque was unbelievable. George Larocque. And because he's a huge hockey fan, so this is all in his wheelhouse. He did one called The Enforcers, and that was for Todd Fedoruk and Cam Jansen. Like but he has this thing on, he has this really descriptive face, and it has different sides to it. And he talked to us about his struggles with depression. He was on stage in Toronto in The Producers, which was a massive show, and he was not getting good reviews, and it crushed him. And he had to really address that. And this year, he said, on January the 1st, I decided I'm not drinking anymore because I rely on it too much. And it makes me incredibly lonely afterwards. And I mean, it was heartbreaking to hear him, but also inspirational because, here's a guy that has moved past it. So that's the story behind Sean Cullen and the Andrew Raycroft Isolation Nation song. That was one of his best. That was really funny.
That is funny, and please thank him personally.
So let's go back to your story. So we picked that up now in Vancouver, where you're loving the atmosphere and you're able to move past this. And I asked you the question, when was the first time that you shared it? And you're saying you never really did while you were playing. You didn't, in Vancouver, or was it Vancouver, Colorado, or Colorado, Vancouver?
Colorado, Vancouver.
Right. Colorado, Vancouver. And then there was one more place. I know this. I got this. I told you I was going to say it, but
I wanted to speed thing for you.
Yeah, thank you. In Dallas, you never said to the guys that you played with, hey, I want you to know all of me, not just half of me.
Yeah, no, not at all. I was still, and I was still that the trade, the whole thing, the whole Toronto, it kind of followed all the way through. And playing in Toronto in the NHL, everyone watches those games. Everyone knows what's going on in that market. And even in, when you're in Dallas, what's going on in Toronto. It's just the way it is. So I never really felt comfortable talking about it. I kind of wanted to just leave it where it was, especially playing, and, try and move past it as a player and not be the guy that was that guy in Toronto. So yeah, I certainly just always left it alone. And again, not necessarily the best way to deal with things, but that's what I did.
Right. And you got married in between your first year and your second season, right? In Toronto.
Yeah.
Did your mental state at that point, which obviously was fragile, which was not the best, did that affect your wedding?
It didn't. No, it didn't affect. Everyone had fun. We had a blast. I'm
not talking about everybody else. I'm talking about.
Oh, for me? Yeah. No, yes, absolutely. For me, absolutely. I mean, I had, I just went through all of that stuff in Toronto. We just missed the playoffs, and, end of June, you have 300 people that are at the wedding, or we didn't have 300, 200 people. And, exactly what everyone's kind of thinking, or you feel like you do. That was always my thing too. I always assumed I knew what everyone was thinking all the time. And that's not a good thing either. And I've recognized that that's something that doesn't work for me. And 99% of the time I'm completely wrong anyway. So why am I trying to sort out what someone else is thinking? And being in that spotlight, that's what that did to me as well. So certainly, we had, a lot of late nights on that wedding, and just tried to grind through it, by not thinking about it, not wanting to deal with hockey. But at the end of at the same time, there's lots going on, and I should have been thinking about hockey throughout that whole summer because of the way it ended. I should have flipped it the other way, and instead of putting it away and just trying to act like nothing happened and just have a wedding like, no big deal. That's what I was doing instead of, all right, let's just have, let's have fun and get on to hockey.
When did you first discuss this with Erin, who was then your fiance during the summer, became your wife, and you guys now have 3 kids? I'm going to say you have 3 beautiful kids, but I haven't seen your kids. But that's what we say, right? No one would ever go.
Her genes, so
no one would ever go. You've got 2 beautiful kids. I actually said that to Jeremy Roenick once, not about his kid, but we hired him to do segments on Off the Record, so he was actually getting paid. And his first appearance, I mean, he's JR, right? So I said to him, Jeremy Roenick, thanks for joining us, man. This is exciting. You had 10 great years in the NHL. So he said, I played 17. I go, no. He was so pissed. Oh my gosh. Like, I had to call him and beg him afterwards for forgiveness. So it would be weird for me to go, oh, you have 2 beautiful kids. And you go, oh no, I have 3. And I go, yeah, no, I know.
Yeah, absolutely. There might be a line there.
What did you tell Erin?
I think I didn't have to talk to her directly, but, she knew that it was hard, and she understood that it was hard to go out to dinner every night. And it was hard to, just be that person. We would get out of town, we'd come to Boston, and that would relieve some of that pressure of being downtown Toronto all the time. And it probably was, again, going to Vancouver and then having I think we talked about it more then, just about how happy I was, and how much we love it here. And so I kept that to myself too, because I didn't want to, burden her. I don't want, her to worry about where I was. And again, I'm sure she had to deal with a lot more than she would ever let on for me as well. Being in Toronto and being in the stands on all those games. And so again, it was never it was kind of both ways, where we both kind of kept it compartmentalized a little bit. But certainly when we got out of it and realized how happy I was, other places, that's when I talked about just how excited I was to be playing hockey.
Right. Andrew, did you ever experience, not you, because I've already asked you this question, but anybody that you cared about in your life before Toronto who experienced, mental illness, and not like real, genuine, as you went through and as I have been through, a mental illness?
There's a few guys that I played with that certainly struggled with it before I went to Toronto and during that time, and I dealt with that and tried to be helpful, and never really brought up anything that I was dealing with at that time. But certainly a couple of guys, really good friends that went through it at times, and I recognized it because I felt that same sadness at times. And, you try and talk and then, looking back, throughout my life, there wasn't directly, but certainly, we have a big family in Belleville, and you're in a small town. So, you seem to, again, looking back, you recognize it, in a much different light than what it was in 1989, when, that never, I wouldn't even have known what that was then.
Right. So if, I got a couple more questions for you. This is really, it's just an awesome experience for me, to be talking to someone that I watched on television, getting the story behind the story, finding out, like details of what you've gone through, and trying to make a difference in other people's lives is just, like, for me, like an amazing experience. So I would like to keep going on this, but like how much longer can we go? So I got a couple of questions for you. One of them is, if someone said to you, hey, Raycroft, or they call you Razor, right?
Yeah.
Hey, Razor, what is depression? What is that? I hear people talking about it all the time. I know that, you mentioned something about it. What is depression? What would you say?
I think my first thought is sadness right away. For me, that, I correlate those two together really tightly. Again, I'm usually happy. I'm able to, put a good smile on and always try and be positive. I didn't, anger, it wasn't necessarily my thing. I'm not, but being someone who wants to not do anything, just sit at home and not see anyone, not do anything, settle into just sitting on the couch and not having any activity. That's, for me, that's where it was. And that just, again, that the other thing I think of is that snowball. It catches really quickly, and it rolls down the hill really quickly, and trying to trying to stop it, it is difficult.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing you have to do is acknowledge that you're a snowball and you're rolling down the hill, because what happens is we don't notice sometimes that we're having these changes that are going on. And like if you went from one day going, I'm kind of happy-go-lucky and I got a bounce in my step, to the next day to going, oh God, I don't want to get out of bed. I don't want to do anything. Then you would know that you changed, but it doesn't happen like that. And so many people. If you ever choose to share this story with an audience, for instance, there will be people in the audience when you tell your story who go, oh my gosh, I think he's talking about me. And I never put it together. I mean, I went 6 months without going to see a doctor, even though I was like buried in this hole, this deep, dark hole. But it happened slowly over 6 months. So I didn't know it was happening.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no question. It doesn't just happen. Or for me, it didn't just happen right away. And I think I always thought that's what happened. I always thought that the people talk about the chemical imbalance and things like that. Like I thought, that was always the way it was, that you just wake up and someday it's not. But for me, it was that buildup of time. And yeah, I didn't recognize it. I knew things weren't going great in my life, and I knew I wasn't at the same energy level, the same excitement, the same happiness, but I also didn't want to think that it was depression, or I didn't want to think that it was something that really needed to be addressed. I thought it would just kind of go away, and it doesn't.
I was talking to, on this show, quarterback for the BC Lions, Mike Riley. And Mike Riley he has had severe panic attacks, right? And this is all pretty recent. And he said, I went to the doctor. Imagine this. And he said, I was just hoping it was anything but mental illness. I said, what? He goes, yeah, like I had pains in my chest. I would rather at the time have heard that it was heart disease than hearing that it was mental illness. He said, I thought that was like a death sentence to me, which I'm thinking, oh my God, really? Because I mean, I've been through one and not the other one. And it seems to me like panic disorder is a way better option than heart disease.
Yeah, there's no question that, but I can see how I can see that side though. I really, I understand that too, again, to think that it's, completely out of your control, and instead you can, take medicine, or, you can take something. I can get that. I get that. And I recognize that now more so than I certainly did. I think, again, I stayed away from the mental side of things and just tried to act like it was, that it was completely because I, was not feeling good, or I was injured a little bit, or any of these other things, why I didn't want to get up and go. But,
right.
But the reality is it was because I wasn't in the proper mental state.
Okay. A couple more questions. Number one, what product are you using in your hair? Because, it's kind of gravity defying. And
it's bad right now. My wife was just making fun of me as I came on here. It's almost like, I comb my hair with a loaf of bread, but it's a mess.
I got a better one for you. You combed your hair with a Kentucky Fried Chicken drumstick. That is like, you imagine someone doing that. You go, yeah, I can kind of see that. So your wife was making fun of you for your hair, but not your mustache?
Yeah, well, so my mustache, it's actually like fully all normal, but for whatever reason, my mustache always comes in darker. So no, the mustache is like not as noticeable without the camera on. The hair is very noticeably slicked back and not normal for me. So, but I wasn't going to wear a hat for you. I refuse.
Thanks, man.
I wasn't going to wear a hat.
But it wasn't an insult when I said it. When I said, what do you use in your hair? Because I think your hair looks really good. Don't ask me about the mustache, but the hair looks really good. And when did you first meet Tuukka Rask? And I'm just going to tell people who are watching, who are not sports fans, that you were dealt from the Toronto Maple Leafs to the Boston Bruins in exchange for Tuukka Rask. And, he was at one time, I'm sure, not a name that you wanted to hear, because people kept saying, oh, they had made a mistake trading, Tuukka Rask for Raycroft. Where's Rask? We want Rask back. And he's had a great career, obviously, and continues to. When's the first time you met him?
We met. I actually played in Finland in the same town as him. And I don't remember, but we met at some point there. But the first time I remember we skated together in Boston, it would have been around that 2010 year, 2011 year, when he just first made it here in Boston, because he was in the minors for a few years before. I think 2010 was his first full season, and we just skated together in Boston, and that was the first time we'd actually kind of been on the ice together and shot the breeze together. And since then, obviously, we've crossed a lot more paths, just being down here. But that first time was middle of the summer, going on and skating together.
And I mentioned that because he is it fair to say, I mean, through no fault to his, I mean, he didn't ask to be traded for you, and you didn't ask to be traded for him, but you heard his name so much, you must have had some animosity, not towards him, but towards the idea of him.
Yeah. You know what? It was more me feeling a little inferior, to be honest, and not having confidence. It was more that, and not, I really have never felt animosity towards him. I think I've felt animosity to the situation and to people not necessarily always explaining it the proper way, or not, dealing with the actual reality of what was going on at that time. But no, to him personally, by that point, I was, he was going this way and I was going this way. And so there was certainly, a little bit of confidence issue and that, just not feeling, wishing that I was him a little bit, at that time.
That's some really good self-awareness there, Andrew, for real. To say, I was at that time, and I tried really hard to phrase it in a way that it was clear that, I didn't assume that you were mad at him. I didn't assume It was just like what he represented. And now you guys are buddies, right? You golf together, and isn't one of your kids, isn't he the favorite player?
Yeah. Oh yeah. My kids love Tuukka. So they got to meet Tuukka a few times here now. So they think he's the best, which again, it's really cool. Like, my kids think I'm better than I was because I got Tuukka. So it's kind of come around in that way that it's kind of a cool thing now that they think he's cool and they think I'm cool because I got traded for him.
That is such a great twist on the story, that they're going, oh my God, Dad, you must be really good because you were traded for Tuukka Rask, and Tuukka Rask is really good. So, wow, I think that's pretty wonderful. Let's say goodbye in a second. Phil, you're going to roll the Raycroft pack that we put together, because when I was going through looking for that stuff to embarrass you today, I found so much gold. I don't know if you've ever YouTubed yourself or if you've ever Googled yourself, but this is what you get when you go on YouTube for Andrew Raycroft. Roll it, Phil.
Do you play? Yeah, my first time yesterday in 7 years. That's it, Swole.
Somebody from ET Canada, per se, was going to ask you to pose for some sort of calendar.
No, you wouldn't want me to take my shirt off for a calendar. I don't think I would sell too many.
Rutu coming in the other way. Jokinen across. Corbo, a shot! Save Raycroft! Sublime! Oh, wow! Wow! Raycroft is locked! And it's a guy who the Leafs said, you're not good enough to play for us. We're going to buy you out. We're sending you somewhere else. And Raycroft could not be happier. Andrew. Out to the line, Gonchar to Carlson. He shoots, save, rebound, Raycroft! Covered the short side. Ken Beller right here, Sports Center, here it comes. This is about as good as you're going to get.
Andrew hasn't let his fame or his good looks go to his head.
Oh, that one kills me. That one, you got the two that bugged me the most by far. The Washington goal that went through my legs. Like, I don't know why I tried to play the puck the way I did there. And then that one, I'm stretching my neck. This is a good platform for me to talk about this. That's in Carolina. You have to stare at this scoreboard because you're down in the corner. So I'm staring at the scoreboard for literally 3 hours, 2.5 hours, and they catch me stretching my neck sideways with my eyes. Just like this is exactly what I was doing because my neck was killing me. and now it's got like 900,000 views on YouTube. My career in Toronto. It's like, oh, that's the worst.
Well, good luck hitting 1 million. You know, if
I know,
maybe not the way you wanted to do
something
it.
at least for that, or what?
Yeah, that is. There's so much fun. I mean, the save at the end of the game with like no time on the clock when he. I'm trying to remember what the announcer said, but that was like really cool. And I'm sure you're watching, given what you said to start this. I'm sure you're watching, going, well, you know what? I was, I was pretty damn good, and I made it to the National Hockey League. And yeah, maybe you wanted to be Martin Brodeur, but you were Andrew Raycroft, NHL goaltender for a decade, and I think that's really cool. And you have a story which will make a difference in people's lives. This is the complimentary part of the show. Oh, Andrew, you're so awesome, but you really are, and it's a pleasure to chat with you. Thank you for sharing your story, and I hope to talk to you again soon. Please say hi to your dad for me.
I definitely will. Thanks for letting me come on and talk, and it was a pleasure to have this and let me do it. So I really appreciate it, Michael. Compliments around the world. Yeah.
Is this the way it looked?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah. You got to get it back a little, I guess. Need a hat too, real low.
Thanks, man.
You got it.
That's it, Phil. We're done.
Bingo.
Oh, that was so much fun.